I think, everybody has different stories of what got them started and where, but that's so neat because I also started out with a different career path in college. I went to be a journalist, which isn't far off. I love writing, but the marketing and journalist program were super tough. The communications program was really tough. And I knew that I'd always wanted to teach. And so I ended up switching to elementary education, and got my minor in TESOL so I could help English language learning students. And that still plays a big role in everything that I do. But it's funny because like now I'm kind of back to that writer side. I did not audition for our comedy group, but I loved Studio C. I went to BYU. So Studio C, they used to be called Divine Comedy. I went and watched them pretty much every other week, and they were it. I mean, yeah,
Oh,
those shows were awesome. And I think a lot of them wrote their own sketches and then they produced a show as well the last couple of years. So anyway.
I mean, Divine Comedy, by the way, is brilliant as a name.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We wrote our own sketches. We produced the show, which really served me well when I got to the Groundlings. You every week you have to write all your own sketches. You cast it with other people in the group. You go out to the Goodwill and you get your costumes. You put it all wigs, everything, put it together. And you do that. I did that every Sunday for 18 months, every Sunday, and such good training for any kind of creative pursuit. Just to keep the stamina up and to say, I don't wait to be funny or creative. I just have to be. It's now my job.
Yeah. No, and I just love that you discovered that and you went with it. Yeah, that's so cool. So, what do you feel is the hardest part of being an author and a writer? What's the
The
hardest?
hardest part of being an author or writer is literally just sitting down and doing it and start opening the document and staying focused. It's really that is the hardest thing because it's extremely lonesome. Writing, I think sometimes you almost have to kind of hypnotize yourself or put a spell on yourself to get into the world you're creating, but it can be painful to leave the real world to get into that creative world, and you got to go by yourself. And it's wonderful when you get into it, when you've cast the spell on yourself and are in that world. But gosh, it's hard to get to that space sometimes. And this, Katie, you're a parent and a teacher, and gosh, what you have to give up is that time. You have to say, okay, whatever it is, early in the morning, late at night, the weekends, when you have a babysitter, whatever it is, you've got to say, well, instead of doing something relaxing and fun, I'm going to sit by myself in front of the screen and make something up and try not to judge myself, but I'm going to judge myself. And, it's a lot, and it's a choice you got to keep making over and over.
For sure. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because I've heard different answers. I love that we're all so different. All writers are different, but you are right. For me, I mean, the marketing is super tough, but I have people in place to help me with that. Carving out the time, dedicating time to write each day is hard. And whether it's staying focused. Yeah, if the kids are awake, I'm not going to get much done. For sure, my most productive writing is early in the morning or at night after they've gone to bed. All of my ideas that come to me, whether it's in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning, I just jot them down, go for it later. But I would say, honestly, and I should say this because I am trying to create this atomic habit of writing every day. And I do write in little journals like gratitude, my Flecks of Gold journal from Rachel at 3 and 30. That's about motherhood. Gratitude the Start Today journal by Rachel Hollis. So I've got a few in my queue. But when I actually write my books, I would say it's like 2 or 3 times a week. And that's not a lot, which is why I'm also just kind of in the middle of it, but like you said, if you're trying to you were cranking out 2 lengthy books in the same year, that is lonesome. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of hours. It's a lot.
It was a lot. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Let me silence this. It was a lot. I don't recommend it. I'm definitely never going to do it that way again. And I don't think there's any shame in whatever pace you're going, by the way. There are different times in life where you're going to have more time or less time, or more focus or less focus. So don't add any time clock to yourself if there isn't. If there isn't one, it's what you're doing your best. Everyone remind yourself that when you're writing, because you're going to need to hear it. You're doing your best. And I'm going to give you another trick, which is a phrase that I learned from a friend. At the time, he's the canoe friend I mentioned. And he was building a wooden canoe by hand. He built it by hand. His name is Trent Pressler, by the way. And now he has a memoir coming out in 2 weeks called Little and Often, which kind of documents his building of this canoe as well as his relationship with his father. It's just hauntingly beautiful. But way before the book, way before anything, he had decided he was going to build a wooden canoe, and he had a timeline on it. And so anytime people wanted to hang out, his friends or work buddies or whatever, he would say, "I'm sorry, I can't. I'm building a canoe." And it was like everyone just said, "Oh, okay, that made sense." There was a concrete answer, and he didn't have to feel guilty for turning down social obligations. And it was just such a simple, straightforward answer. "I have to have this canoe built by the end of the summer, so sorry, I can't hang out. I'm building a canoe." And I translate that mantra to when I was, tempted to hang out with friends, or they say, "Can you come? Oh, it's this party or it's that party." And I would say, I would think to myself, "You're building a canoe. You're building a canoe." So I would say, "I'm so sorry. I have this book deadline." And you just have to get something. Once you start doing it, it's easy. It's at first you feel really guilty and you're like, "Oh, I know, but I should really be there for this person or be there for that." But do you really? Isn't it better to, finish this project? And the other thing I'll steal from Trent is the title of his book, which is Little and Often. And that's a Midwestern phrase. He and I met at Iowa State, and it's little and often make much, right? It may be more beyond the Midwest, but it's an important thing to keep in mind when you're undertaking a giant endeavor like writing a book. You have to do a little and often, or you'll never finish.
You'll never finish, and then you'll go insane. So like, that's perfect, because I feel like, again, with that, me mentioning earlier that I want to make writing an atomic habit, writing my books an atomic habit, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes a day, it's something towards that end goal. It reminds me that I'm taking it seriously, and I'm not just hoping that magically some elves will show up in the middle of the night and finish writing it for me, or like when I'm trying really hard to create the perfect conflict and then I'm stuck on the resolution, that I just don't write. Like you're saying, you've got to just be consistent with that. And I love that mantra. I'm going to think about that. You're building a canoe. I love that. It's just, no, I've got this thing going on, and I'm not saying that my friends or my kids' friends are not important, but just I need to focus. So I'm doing this. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. I think that's huge. I was talking.
And remember,
Oh, go ahead.
They'll be thrilled for you. They'll be thrilled for you. They'll understand. When your canoe is done, they'll want to ride in it with you.
Very true. I just love that metaphor. That's going to be stuck in my head now. But so you've kind of already touched on it, but what is the secret sauce for publishing your middle grade novel? You've talked through, like, especially the focusing part of it. Maybe tell us a little bit more about like timeline. How long did it take you to write your both books, separately? Maybe talk about, I was going to say, like, you already talked about the publishing and editing part of it. So maybe just how you've talked about pacing, talk about maybe what, I don't know, the secret sauce is, whatever that is, the recipe.
Well, one huge lesson I learned is that I need an outline. I need an extremely detailed outline. I had the hubris to begin writing Horse Girl without an outline. Perhaps one of, if not the biggest mistakes of my life. So it was perfectly fine. I'm used to writing comedy sketches, so I could do, a chapter at a time, kind of had little chunks and I was building the story, but I hadn't really considered the arc, the resolution, any of these basic things one must consider. And it's the timeline's a little funky because I wrote half of Horse Girl, and then I got offered or I got invited to participate as a writer at Audible, and that what they had created this kids writers room, and someone had kindly slipped them the first chapter of Horse Girl, and based on that I got invited to join this writers room. And the concept was going to be that there were 4 of us and we were going to kind of work on projects together. That wasn't feasible because we weren't going to be able to all be there at the same time. So we ended up doing 4 separate projects, and it became just a separate thing, but I was already connected with Audible, and they needed the script for the Flying Flamingo Sisters much faster than Penguin needed the Horse Girl finished manuscript. So I took a pause and did Flying Flamingo Sisters, and I want to say, I think it was about 5.5 or 6 months. And this was on top of my day job. I also edit for a magazine and I freelance as a journalist. And so
cool, but that's busy. No, that's very busy.
Very busy. So at night, I would write at night and on weekends. The Flying Flamingo Sisters project is a 1930s style radio play.
Cool.
There's sound effects, multiple actors playing the different voices. And so that one was a little bit more what I was used to because it was a script book hybrid. And it was, for some reason, easier for me to write, probably because I'm used to writing scripts and I'm used to writing dialogue, it was very dialogue driven. But once I had learned my mistake in Horse Girl of not having an outline, I outlined to death the Flying Flamingo Sisters. And I learned I could just, after a long day, I could go home and I could say, okay, this is what's happening now. I'm writing this now, this part now. And it was like I had, past me had done the work for future me. And so then I had to go back and reconstruct an outline for Horse Girl when I returned to that. But it was a huge, huge process lesson for me. Of course, there's room to adjust and play once you're writing it, but the outline, I would almost spend more time on that now. And those tangles and those problems are going to come up in the future. So force yourself to work them out in the outline if you can, is my approach.
And even with children's books, they actually, all the publishers and literary agents I looked at required an outline. And I was like, this is kind of ridiculous. It's not even a full 32 pages. There's going to be illustrations. You want me to outline it, but you realize the value in it when you're developing the sequence of events, the arc of your story, the conflict, whatever. And so I think that's a really good tip for anyone that's interested in writing, a book, because it's just a lot. You can't, maybe you can, I can't. I cannot pull all-nighters like I used to in college. So if I could just write and write and write in one sitting, how awesome would that be? But I can't. So if I have that outline and I say, okay, I left off here. Where was I going with that? And then pick up the next day where I was writing. I think an outline is just perfect for that. So I'm really glad you said that. I felt silly about it at first, again, for a children's book, but I would totally need one. I have one for my self-help book. I would need one for a chapter book for sure. So that's a good tip.
Yeah, most of us don't have the luxury of this being our only job. So we have to build in tools for ourselves to make it possible.
And you've talked a little bit about both books now, and I have a better idea of the Flying Flamingo Sisters, but since you just had Horse Girl come out last month, right? Will you tell us a little bit more about it, summarize it, or whatever you're comfortable with?
Yes. So Horse Girl is sort of Black Beauty meets Mean Girls, and it is funny.
That sounds awesome.
Yay! Yeah, it's a funny and also tender story of a 7th grader named Willa, who she also goes by Wills. That's her nickname, and she is absolutely horse crazy, but she has never been able to take lessons on a real horse. So her love of horses consists of, reading horse books, collecting model Breyer horses.
Mhm.
But her family moves to a new town, and her parents finally allow her to enroll at the Oakwood Riding Academy. And Wills is thrilled. It's like her life is finally going to start. She's finally going to be with horses. But when she gets to the stable, there are a group of kids who have been riding there a long time, and they're really good, and they really are less than welcoming. And on top of it, Willa can't afford her own horse, so she gets matched up with this elderly rescue horse named Clyde Lee.
Are there rescue horses? I did not know that.
Oh, yes, they're wonderful rescue horses. Cool. And Clyde is this gentle giant. What's that?
I said, and Clyde is elderly. Okay.
He's elderly. He doesn't really want to jump. He doesn't really want to like canter, gallop, trot, anything. He just want to eat snacks, really. So Will is trying to deal with learning to ride this horse and often falling on her face. And she is dealing with trying to make friends with these mean girls and also falling on her face in that department. And on top of it, her mom's in the Air Force and stationed overseas. So she really is missing her mom. Her dad is constantly mortifying her with embarrassing dad jokes. Her sister is like so annoying and mean. And on top of it, she starts finding mysterious notes in her backpack, and she doesn't know where those are coming from. So like a lot of teen girls, she's got a lot going on, and there's a lot of angst. And there's also a lot of hijinks and adventures and funny, embarrassing moments.
It sounds so intriguing. I want to read it already. It really sounds so. I never had horses, but my grandpa did, and we would ride them growing up. That was always a treat to go to their farm and ride horses. But horse riding lessons are not cheap, and so I imagine it reminds me a little bit of a picture book I read earlier this year about the bookmobile ballerina. So she read and read and read about how to be a ballerina, but she was a Black girl. And so she was rejected from all these ballet schools, even though she was super talented. So it's really interesting because she also was like, ready to do things from what she'd learned. And kind of like Willa had really, they just got home from the T-ball celebration. So sorry. Yay. Yeah. Thanks, love. Okay. So anyway, and then she finally finds someone to advocate for her so that she can go to a ballet school after she does this little audition. So I love that undercurrent that you have there, that theme. Like I said, I just want to read it already. It sounds really good. And it's out. Tell us where we can find it.
You can find the book wherever books are sold, as well as my website, horsegirlbook.com, has all the links to a bunch of indie places, as well as the big mainstream retailers and bookstores. And I hope you read it. It's a really fun, if you like horses or you're just feeling like you can remember a time in your life where you felt like an awkward outsider. The book is about searching for your forever herd, that place where you just fit in and belong. And I think it's really connecting with, I've heard from a lot of young girls who are really, really enjoying this story. And that's the best part of this whole process. So yeah, I hope you give it a read.
For sure. And yeah, getting that feedback is just, it's the cherry on top, from the audience you wrote it for. And that's one thing that's been tricky for me too, is with children's books. I have to keep reminding myself, yes, I'm writing for children, but I'm also writing it for children's parents, for teachers. I want them to see this book and get it and buy it because they want to read it with their kids. So yes, all those things just need to be like in the back of your mind while you're writing.
Yes. And one thing about Horse Girl I'm discovering is that children's book, there's a high nostalgia, horse books. there's a high nostalgia factor. For many of us, the horse books are just part of the childhood canon of reading. So and Horse Girl, the new book, really is an homage to those classic horse books like Misty of Chincoteague and Black Beauty. And it's really references and was inspired by those, but with a modern take.
Definitely.
So that's how I'm trying to get the parents and the teachers and the librarians are finding it that way, which is just so nice.
That's amazing. I finally decided to put a filter up because I'm embarrassed of my living room that I'll take care of tomorrow. So, anything else you would like to share with us? Thank you so much for the time you've spent talking to me, but is there anything else either for writers or the readers of your books that you'd like to say?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Katie, and thank you for listening, everybody. And on my website, horsegirlbook.com, there is an events tab. So if you have any questions about my books, I know I have a lot of Flying Flamingo Sisters readers who want to know what's going to happen next. And I'll be doing a bunch of virtual Q&As as well as a few in-person events. So bring your questions to those because I love hearing from readers. And you can always go to my websites and there's an email. So if you want a note from the Flying Flamingo Sisters or the characters in Horse Girl, they love to send letters to readers. So do reach out that way.
That is neat. I love that.
Yeah. So for writers out there, like I love connecting with fans and I highly encourage you to do it when you have a book that's come out. You know, if someone takes the time to email me, I ask, would you like a letter and stickers from the Flying Flamingo Sisters? Or would you like a lapel pen from Horse Girl? Because I think it just helps build that personal connection. And it's really important. And yes, it helps grow loyal readers who will come back for more, but it also is just like, isn't that why we're doing it? To connect with people. That's why we're writing. So find whatever ways you can to connect.
That's really good advice. I've tried to figure out kind of what kind of book swag or whatever I would do because I love the idea of a bookmark, but it's a children's picture book. So I don't really you wouldn't need a bookmark to read Sophie. You read it in 5 minutes, you read it in a sitting. So I've just been thinking about some different things. I might have my artist like commission like a favorite sketch or some things like that from the book and have that at a book signing or something like that. But
I think that's a great idea. Any little special lanyap, if you will, that you can add, I think does make people, I don't know that it sells more books, but it just is a personal connection sort of thing. I ordered little lapel pens, which was an idea that I saw another author do, and I thought it was really sweet. And I offered those initially as a pre-order campaign. So if you pre-order before this date, you would get a lapel pen, and that worked nicely. And then now I give them away at events and as thank yous, the leftovers. But they're all kinds of. And then there are authors who don't think that it's important at all. So like all things in publishing, you'll hear completely opposite opinions. Oh, you know what I was going to tell you? And I have a friend, Rocky Markandi, who has a couple of great children's books. One's already come out, and her next one is called Hair Twins, that's coming up in April. Mm-hmm. And her first book was called Super Satya, about her daughter Satya, and they gave away capes, superhero capes. Which was so cute.
That is cute. What a cute idea.
Yeah.
So when you were mentioning lapel pins, is this what you're talking about? Like these little
bingo. Okay. That's exactly it.
That's cool. See, I think that's really neat. Yeah, just a little memento, a little something. Okay.
Yes, and then what I did was order business cards that I stuck the pin on because it was much cheaper just to do it myself. And on the business card, I printed a QR code for people to pre-order, as well as like the Instagram handles I wanted them to tag if they posted it. So it was all on one handy card to remind them if they were going to do some social posting.
That's smart. Yeah, that's really good marketing. So while we're talking about Instagram and social media, I have horsegirlbook.com as a website where people can follow you. Where can they follow you elsewhere? What, be it Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Absolutely. So there's also a website, flyingflamingosisters.com. And my personal website is carrieseim.com, which is CarrieSeim, like Mary.com. And that has all of my contact info and how to email me and my agent info. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Carrie K. Seim.
Perfect.
And on Twitter as CK Seim. They're a little different, but close.
I know. No, and I'm actually, it sounds funny. I'm about to go through the transformation of changing my Instagram name, which isn't like a huge deal, but a couple years ago, I started this literacy account, and I wanted it to be related to literacy, just so people know what I'm doing. And that was before I started writing. But now I'm like, the time has come. My book comes out in September. The time has come for me to have some kind of author, writer representation in my name. But I've been so hesitant because currently my handle is katie.s.lit, like Katie's lit, but also my last name is S, story. So, but because story is my last name and I write stories, I've been playing with that. Isn't that fun?
I love that.
So anyway, yeah, I've actually like got to post it here with like the ideas of when I actually make the change. It shouldn't be this painful, but I'm just like, but I've built this following. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, when you have to change your name a little bit for like Twitter and Instagram or Facebook, and I have a Facebook page too, but yeah, it's just all the dotting all the I's and crossing the T's, right?
Yes, it really, it's a lot. And as you said, you have to do so much marketing on your own, no matter if you're self-publishing or you're with a small indie publisher or with your big publisher. Unless you are, Michelle Obama, Amanda Gorman, you're going to be doing the vast majority of it yourself. So be prepared for that side of things too. Be creative. I just decided I was going to go try everything I could think of and just see what sticks.
And that's perfect. I mean, that's what it takes sometimes. So you are awesome. And Carrie, thank you so much for spending time with me today or tonight. So what I'll do is I'll have you email me a headshot and just the same email we've been using, and a picture of each of your books, if you're okay, just screenshotting that. And then currently, I think this podcast will come out in about a month because I am so far behind. I took a little vacation.
Good for you.
And we found a new home and we'll be moving. So, which is great, but it's just a lot, it's a lot. And so,
congratulations.
Thank you. I remembered to write my publisher and let her know where to send those cases of books, because I don't want them here. To move them.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, thank you so much for having, you're really, it's so nice to talk to someone who's like alive and listening and quick. It's really great.
I hope I look alive. I don't know if I feel alive, but that's good to know. Thank you so much. So it's been
great. You are. You're good.
Let's stay in touch. I love your personality. I love what you're doing. And I will find you on Instagram.
Please do. I'll email you the headshots and the books. And then please keep me on your list for your book.
Thank you. I will. I definitely will. And look forward to it coming out in September, a book birthday.
Yay. Exciting. Good timing too.
Yeah.
After the pandemic.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. We'll have a good one and we'll talk to you later.
Okay.